Okay, now let's talk about how the different applications of our internet services have changed over the years, and what the different applications, how we are using internet today. So first and most common application of the internet is the World Wide Web. Now, this is slightly confusing because we often refer to as the internet and the World Wide Web interchangeably. So we think they're the same thing, but it's not the same thing. They are two completely different things. We are accidentally using them to relate to the same thing. So if you say, where did you find that web page? I found it on the internet. I read it on the internet, but that's not the proper term. You would say that I read it on the World Wide Web. That makes more sense. But internet and World Wide Web are two different things. Now, what's the difference? The internet is a network of networks. So basically, the internet is the shortened version of internetwork. So internetwork is a network of networks. Whereas, what is the World Wide Web? It is a distributed application that runs on this internet. And the primary purpose of this World Wide Web is to connect millions of web pages with each other through hyperlinking. Now, in a sense, you could say that the World Wide Web is a software, it's an application, and based on this application, I'm allowed to connect from one web page to another. I can move from pages to pages just by clicking on different hyperlinks. Just a click away, you're accessing different web pages from different servers even. It doesn't make a difference. So that's the application, that's the World Wide Web. And this application, as with all software, it has to have some hardware to run on. Any software is, if it does not have some hardware to run on, what you won't actually have any effect of that software. So it has to have some hardware to execute that software. So in that case, considering that analogy here, the underlying hardware is my internet, and on that internet, I have a distributed application, which is my World Wide Web. So in a sense, you can say the World Wide Web is the software, and the internet is the underlying hardware that makes the World Wide Web possible. And obviously, as mentioned before, the World Wide Web is basically doing what? It is allowing you to connect from one web page to another web page just by clicking on a link. And that's all you're doing. Now, how is that going to be possible when you don't have underlying interconnecting routers to take your request from one server to another server in possibly another continent? So this interconnecting network of routers allows me to very seamlessly connect between different websites, and those websites will be very far apart from each other on different continents altogether, and it doesn't make I don't even care. I don't even realize this. I just sort of click on a link and I go from one website to another website just like that. But the thing is, most interesting aspect about the internet is, and this has also been mentioned before, the whole network, this entire huge network that is encompassing the connectivity all over the globe, is basically treated and it's behaving like just one entity. So when we say I access the internet, you only access the only one internet. There's only one internet. It doesn't matter what web page you're accessing. For that you access the internet, and there's only one internet. It doesn't matter what server you're accessing. There are many servers, but you're accessing it through just one internet. So what that means is that your entire network behaves as a single entity. And you never have to say that I did not find this web page on this internet. I will start to look on that internet. And if I will not find it on that internet, I will find it on this internet, so on and so forth. You don't have to say this because there is no this, that, and some other internet. All internet is basically just one, and it behaves as a single entity. And you are seamlessly interacting with different web servers just by hyperlinking. And the underlying hardware is the internet that you're using, and we're discussing right now. So World Wide Web is the most commonly used application of the internet that we're using right now. Okay. Apart from that, we're looking, we also make use of cloud computing, also your streaming services, and IP addressing is also involved in this as well. We're looking into that later, but let's talk about cloud services first of all. Okay, in the simple term, what cloud computing and cloud services are is that they provide you with computing resources. Now, again, by computing resources, it's a very huge term. A wide variety of things can fall into the term computing resources. But the principle behind cloud computing is that you are provided with computing resources through a public network or such as the internet. So these computing resources were conventionally provided you by your own computer. So it could be a processor, it could be security, it could be storage, it could be some software. Conventionally, it is there, it is on your computer, and you're making use of it right on your computer. But when cloud computing is involved, your control is shifted from your computer to possibly a server located on your internet. For example, if I want to make sure, or I want to avail storage services. Traditionally, I would store data on my hard disk, and whenever I want to access that data, I would simply click on the location, the file, folder, subdirectory, wherever that data is, and I'll simply click on it and access it. So everything is located on my hard disk. This is how conventionally data storage was. But now when cloud is involved, it means that that data is stored, but not on my hard disk, but on a server somewhere. And if you want to access the data, you will access it through internet services. It's not located on your computer, but you are availing it through your internet services. Now, of course, it has its own benefits and there are drawbacks as well. But in general case, there are a lot of different applications of cloud computing. Many applications may possibly involve processing as well. So you're not making use of your own processor, but you may be making use of a processor that is stored on a server somewhere, and you're accessing processing services through your internet connection. You may be accessing some software that is not installed locally on your computer, but it's installed on a server somewhere, and you're simply accessing the services of that software through your internet connection. So whenever you're accessing normal computing service, you're accessing computing services which you would have otherwise have to done on your own computer locally. If you're accessing those services through an internet network or a network, that means that you are basically relying on some sort of cloud services. Now, clouds can be existing in two types. There is the private cloud and then there's the public cloud. We'll be looking into these two types in detail. Apart from that, the public cloud also falls, any public cloud service provider will obviously choose their service delivery models. And we have three service delivery models to choose from as far as public cloud service providers go. But first, we are looking at what a private cloud is. Private cloud is when an organization chooses to establish its own network, private cloud, and it can establish its own private cloud using one of these three approaches. The first being, it may take on complete responsibility. We're talking about the organization itself. So, for example, you have a business and you're very secretive of your business and every transaction is handled within your business. Obviously, you will not rely on a public cloud service provider in any way. You would want to handle the data directly by yourself, so, and your organization. So if that's the case, and you want to make sure the data is stored on some sort of network as well, making it available for all connected employees within that firm, within that organization, then you will have to somehow create a cloud service model. But since this cloud service model is owned by you, your company, and your people, and was initially set up by your company and is now being maintained by your company and your organization, this type of cloud service is actually a private cloud. In fact, this is known as a private network and on-site installation. Now, on-site installation means that if you want to access that network, you will have to actually visit the office. Say you own an office building and your business is set up there, is based there, that every employee in that building, in that office, will be able to access a common resource in that organization. But if you step out of that building, you will not have access to it, because those services are not available publicly, but they're only available locally. It's sort of like a local area network, but the data is not stored on your computer, it's stored on a central server somewhere. But if that cloud is uh, basically set up, created, and owned by your organization, it is referred to as a private cloud, and it is actually the first variety in which you are, basically controlling everything on its own. Of course, it has its drawbacks. That means you may have to hire more people to manage this cloud, and it also means that you will also have to invest more money into setting up this organization in your own place, because you'll have to arrange for the necessary hardware or storage devices whatsoever. Everything has to be managed by yourself. But it is the best approach if you are very tight in, where you're very, serious about information leaks, if any case. So if your organization has very tight regulatory requirements, then obviously you will go for this approach, and you may not want any third party or any other public cloud network to have access to your information in any way. Second option in a private cloud is that instead of creating the cloud ourselves, creating and setting it up ourselves, because we may not have the necessary technical skills and staff to do it, what we can do is that we can outsource the process of the creation and management of our private cloud to a third party organization who specializes in the creation and management of cloud services. Now, in this way, you are basically, sort of trusting this third-party organization that for managing your affairs. And of course, there are some privacy agreements as well, and they're not going to be publicly sharing your private information as well. But it's somehow, in a way, it reduces your burden as the company owner, as the organization owner, because you don't have to, take the effort of installing the cloud yourself, setting it up yourself, and eventually maintaining it yourself. So that you have handed that responsibility over to a third party cloud installation and management company, and they take it upon themselves to handle their affairs and with their own technical staff and technical skills. But still, even though you did outsource the creation, installation, and management of this cloud to a third party, it still remains an on-site installation, because if same principle, that if you want to access this cloud, there are certain locations, certain protocols that you have to manage, and you can't simply go home and access through the internet. You can't do that. You have to come there on the site to access the cloud services. Similarly, there's this third variety in which I should be able to outsource the creation and management of the cloud installation. Similar, kind of like what we're doing in option number 2, but the difference is that this cloud is no longer simply accessible on site, but you can access it through internet as well. However, to make sure that only specific people can access it, we can employ some sort of login and password system to allow for only specific people to access that so that private cloud. But since it adds a bonus benefit of allowing your access to that private cloud via internet, it's more convenient in many ways. Now let's consider the example of, say, for example, a university. Now, a university I know that has one of these options. Now, let's just say, for example, that university has its grading system for its teachers and students alike. Now, basically, what the grading system does is that any exam or any test that takes place, is the grade is basically compiled and uploaded on this server somewhere, okay? And all grading information can be accessed here. So by all students and all concerned parties, everyone can access. Of course, They have their different views, because of which some people may only be able to access it, while the other people may also be able to modify it in a different way. But other than that, data is available on some sort of cloud service that allows access to all concerned parties. Now, if, for example, this grading system that was just created was installed and created and managed by the university on its own, then that means that we are opting for the first option, that the organization themselves, university themselves, had took it upon themselves, because they are very tight about the grading system and they don't want the information of any student to land in the wrong hands and ever become, come in front of people who other than the organization themselves. So that's why they have set it on their own. If they are setting it up on their own and they're also managing it on their own, that means that that organization has chosen this first option with respect to private clouds. That university has chosen this first option with respect to private clouds. On the other hand, if the organization decided to hire a third party to set up this cloud and still do it for their university only, so if I want to, as a teacher in that university, if I want to, for example, add grades for a particular student, I will have to visit the university. I will have to access it through a terminal within the university. So that is the exact same case with this first option as well. The difference being the cloud was set up by the university themselves. However, if the university hires some third-party experts to set up the cloud, but to be accessed through the university alone on-site installation, then that means they have gone for the second option, in which they have outsourced the installation, management, and setup of the cloud, but they still want to maintain some sort of secrecy, and they want to make sure that accessing that cloud is handled within the university as well, or only. And the third option may be the university has set it up, they have allowed a third party to set it up, and they've also have allowed to people to access this cloud offsite. Now, what it means by offsite is that you are accessing it through the convenience of your home. How? Through the internet. Now, how am I going to ensure that only limited people access it? Well, obviously, that university will have employees, for example, or students who are given their username and passwords. And if you have certain username or passwords only, then will you be allowed to access this cloud via the internet. So in a way, you are granting access on a private cloud which is available to you via the internet, but you're ensuring that no person outside your organization is capable of accessing it by employing username and strict username and passwords. And if an employee or student has a valid username or password, only then they should be able to access cloud computing. A private cloud usually exists behind a firewall. As we remember regarding firewall could be a software or a hardware, and the main purpose of a firewall is to filter incoming and outgoing traffic and compare it to set criteria. And if it does not meet that criteria, that means it should be deleted immediately. That transmission should be blocked immediately. So a private cloud also exists behind a firewall, so that means any unauthorized access, any unauthorized messages sent to this private cloud will it immediately be handled by this firewall. Okay. Secondly, it is used in the single organization, making it possible for anyone outside of the organization to avail a service, may it be on site or via the internet. You have to take in special precautions to make sure that no one outside the organization is capable of accessing it. Private clouds offer a better security and control, but at the cost of being expensive, as the organization is solely responsible for both the software and the infrastructure. Now, as compared to public cloud, no doubt public cloud is a much larger cloud as compared to the private cloud. And if you think about it, the cost of setting up a public cloud is much higher than the private cloud. But the thing is, the cost of public cloud is balanced out by a large number of users. So that's not necessarily that expensive. On the other hand, private cloud is primarily paid by the organization themselves. So either model that you choose, one, two, or three, the organization is paying up for the setting up of the cloud. Now, since there's only one organization involved, it will definitely be more expensive for that organization to be setting up this private cloud. Now, let's look at the different services offered by your public cloud. Now, as mentioned before, public cloud is basically allowing the general public to access a cloud service provider, and without any distinguishing, without any discrimination, anyone from the general public can access these cloud services whenever they want. And since it's cloud services, they should be able to access it from any device they want as well. So in the terms of public cloud, it means we have opened a cloud service to uh, members of the public, so you can access it, anyone can access, no discrimination whatsoever. Private cloud is limited only to the company itself, so they have to take special precautions to make sure that no one outside their organization has the right to access their private cloud. On the other hand, public cloud is meant to be treated this way. Anyone who wants access to it can gain access to it, provided that they meet the necessary requirements. For example, do you have an email address? You need it first. Do you have a valid what you call a phone number? You may need that as well, so on and so forth. So if you can meet the requirements, then there is no discrimination against you for joining a public cloud. Now, it is created, owned, and managed by a third-party cloud service provider. So, Google, for example, or Microsoft or Amazon, these are third-party cloud service providers. They are not linked to any organization. They're not yours personally. This is a third party. It's an independent organization. This is an independent company. They're not linked with any government authorities as well. So these are completely independent authorities, and they are working in providing you and all end service users with services. So these are examples of public cloud service providers. These are third party. They are not linked to any organization, or they're not possibly linked to you as well. So they are third party, and they work independently and they get paid for their services in a way. It is accessible using your browser, making it easily accessible for anywhere using any device. Most cloud services are granted to you through your web browser, and that means if your computer or any device has a web browser in it, you can access that public cloud anywhere. And that's the ultimate benefit, the ultimate portability that it offers. It is accessible by any individual person or organization. So if you as a simple person, you want to access the public cloud, you want to create an account there, you want to set up your Google Drive, you want to set up your website, whatever you want to do, if you want to do that, you can. That offer is open to everyone. And the same thing goes for organizations as well. Many schools have opted out creating this email system through Google services, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine, because it reduces the cost. You're relying on services that are offered at much cheaper cost by these third parties. And instead of setting up your own system, you're relying on these third party service providers to provide you with storage that you need. Is accessible by any individual person or organization, no discrimination whatsoever. Implemented on very large mainframe computers or server farms. They have massive amounts of available space, allowing it easy accessibility, scalability. Now, the way Google, for example, stores data is basically they have server farms. Now, what is a server farm? Server farm is basically not just one farm, but not one server, but it is many servers connected together to provide information to wherever it's needed, and that's a server farm. Now, that's since the immense size of the people connecting to a public cloud, we have to be able to provide the architecture that is capable of handling. And one of the thing is your uh, server farms. So all data is stored in servers. They have massive amount of space available, allowing easy scalability. Now, what is scalability? Scalability means the the feature of a system to be easily grown into. So if for example, I have a software that is right now capable of handling 5 users at the same time, if my same software can now handle 100 users at the same time, and you easily increased it into that 100 figure, that is a scalable software, because now it's handling new requirements. So if the size of a computer system is increased, or is to be increased, that is known as scalability. So if I am, for example, using public cloud, since they have very large computers and server farms, and massive amounts of data storing capability is available, Scalability is rather easy. In fact, it's frequently taking place. New accounts are created very frequently as well. So this is scalability. And with these public clouds, scalability is actually a problem, but it's this meant for handling scalability. So it's expecting it to happen. The main advantage of your using public cloud is its versatility and pay as you go structure that allows customers the provision of more capacity on demand. You don't have to pay for everything right up. You only pay for what you need. And if you need more things, more services, you need more storage, you need more software extension, whatever it is. If you need more services, you can pay it on the go, and you don't have to buy everything from scratch. So it's possible that if you buy everything from scratch, you may not need all features right away, and you just paid for something that you don't really need right now. But the pay as you go facility allows that I can pay for a service when I need it, and if I don't need it, I stop paying for it. Another disadvantage is related to public cloud, the use of public cloud and its lack of privacy. Now, if the computer's data is stored on my computer only, so I just simply have to keep my computer with me, and I'm somehow ensuring privacy because nobody other than me should be able to access that computer. But the thing with cloud service providers is that you have provided all of your data to them. So, for example, if I look at my Google Drive, I have uploaded many tests, many notes, and stuff like that over my Google Docs. Now, problem is that I don't know where it is. I don't know where that information stays. Is it safe? I don't know. Is it being copied by some other person as well? I don't know. I'm not aware that you may say, Google may say that your data is important to us, it's not being shared, but who knows? Probably it is being copied. So there's always an issue, there's always a doubt with privacy. And especially your third parties, these Google, Amazon, Facebook, all of these organizations are very crystal clear of your private information. All of your data is public, it's become public because you went to public cloud. But if you were, for example, on a private cloud, that cloud is not using the internet, and basically your information, whatever it is left behind on the private cloud. The cloud service provider has complete access on all data and on the cloud. There's no discrimination. If you have uploaded data on the cloud service, on the internet service provider and the third party cloud service provider, that means you have basically granted them access to your private data. And even if they say that we do not access it, we do not do it, you never know. This is not in front of you. You have willingly given them as access. This means that user cannot be sure if their data is hidden from third parties. Moreover, strictly the user is strictly relying on the cloud service provider with respect to the security of their data. So once the data has left my side and I'm putting on a public network, it is now the responsibility of the cloud service provider to make sure that my data does not fall in the wrong hands. And it does its job pretty well because cloud service providers not only are very active, they're also very updated in terms of security flaws. So if I rely on a public cloud service provider right now, rest assured my data will be pretty secured there. Okay, now our service models with respect to our cloud service providers exist in three forms: infrastructure, platform, and software. In the next lecture, we will be looking at the difference between infrastructure as a service. By the way, this IaaS means infrastructure as a service. This is platform as a service, and finally, software as a service.